I think I found the perfect setup for overseas photo and video taking that won't break the bank and won't break your back. Now, in case you're gonna accuse me of just talking forever about things, I'll just show you what those things are up front. There's my trusty Sony ZV-1 and an Insta360 X3 360 camera. Of course, some accessories going along with that, including an SSD in an enclosure. Of course, I admit that title up there is entirely clickbait. Yes, I did manage to get all of this under 1,000 Sing dollars. You're probably not gonna have the same luck that I have. So yeah, it's a little bit of creative accounting. But in today's video, I'll go into a little bit of all of that. Of course, I need to talk about why these are my requirements. I'll talk about each individual aspect, each individual element, all the accessories, with what purpose they serve, and finally, we'll talk a little bit about the price. So yeah, if you're here to just find out what I use, there you go, you've had your answer. For the rest of you, I'll see you after the break. Hello and welcome back to another video. So let's start with my motivation. Like I said, I want something that doesn't break the back and doesn't break the bank. I am first and foremost a tourist, a traveler. So my top priority is to enjoy that process. So that's the main reason why I don't want to carry too much weight. At the same time, I'm not there to monetize my trip. I'm not, a travel vlogger or anything like that. So I'm not going to invest a whole bunch of money into, my gear. So those are my requirements. If you're the kind of person who needs to drag around a Hasselblad and an Arri Alexa everywhere you go, then this video is not for you. Then again, you would know from the price tag, right? Of course, this might lead you to two questions. Your first question might be, why two cameras? If you're going to cut down on cost, surely one camera would be better. And I would agree with that, except, I think these two cameras serve very different purposes. I think they'll come together to create something more, whereas each of these individual cameras are not going to be sufficient to really give you that full experience. You might also ask, why not just use your phone? And I would say that's very valid. I think for the vast majority of travelers, using your phone should be enough. But of course, I would like a little bit more. The ZV-1 that I'm using has a larger 1-inch sensor as well as optical zoom, and these two things together give me a lot more in terms of flexibility as well as the quality of what I capture. And of course, this comes with the additional advantage of not having to take up a bunch of space on my phone and burning up my battery. Right? My phone remains a phone. I use it for navigation, and I would like that to be its independent standalone thing that I'm not draining the battery off unless I need to. So having separate cameras is a compelling idea. So yeah, that's the idea. With that, let's go into our individual devices. Let's start with the Sony ZV-1, which is, by the way, the camera I'm using to shoot all these parts as well. If you've been around for back when I used the DSLR, I think you'll agree that the overall quality is indeed better. The footage is sharper, I get better low light sensitivity. When I'm out and about, the stabilization helps a lot as well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the Sony ZV-1 as my main camera. This was the original ZV-1, mind you, not the ZV-1F, not the ZV-1 Mark II. I think the ZV-1 is, all things considered, the best camera out of the three. And you might be wondering now, how is he gonna fit that under the $1,000 budget? Well, I got it used. All my cameras these days, I get them used because the price to get it brand new is pretty crazy. I was extremely lucky to get my ZV-1 used at $400. It's a steal. You're not gonna find such a good deal that easily. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that because there are also cons to that. But yeah, I like this camera. It shoots great video, it shoots great photos. You have a lot of interesting options to play with, including things like shooting in log. You get some pro tools as well, things like your zebras. So yeah, if you want something that kinda acts like a professional movie camera with about 10% of the usable interface, then yeah, consider the ZV-1. Yes, the interface is absolutely horrendous, the touchscreen is useless in most places. It's definitely far from perfect, but at the same time, I'm pretty happy with it. Well, at least I think the end results speak for themselves. This is pretty much a compact camera, but it has a 1-inch sensor, which allows you to get some really nice effects, shallow depth of field, everything in camera, and it also controls noise surprisingly well, even at higher ISOs at night. Also, thanks to the stabilization, again, night shots come out quite nicely even if you turn the shutter speed way down. You get full manual controls including focus, that is, if you like churning butter. Well, you can actually use the left and right keys. It took me embarrassingly long to realize I could do that. But yeah, it's acting like a camera that is much more expensive. It's going into the DSLR kind of capabilities, but in a tiny little body. It's 294 grams, which means it's really lightweight, really easy to carry around, especially with this neck strap that I got. Wherever I go, I just have the camera at the ready. That neck strap, by the way, is $9. I also bought a little battery box that allows you to house and charge several batteries and SD cards. That comes up to another $40. So yeah, this entire ensemble, let's take it to be $450. Of course, I have to say these are third-party batteries, this is a third-party charger, so it's totally okay to have some reservations about that. I'm taking a risk here. So far, I've not gotten into any problems, and who knows, maybe if something goes wrong, it might cause some further damage. But yeah, so far, so good. Fingers crossed. With that, let's move on to our second camera, which is the Insta360 X3. Actually, when I first planned this video way back in 2023, I was using a different 360 camera. You would have seen that before if you've been around. That was the Insta360 Evo. It's a 3D camera that folds and becomes a 360 camera. Yeah, that broke. I got that used for $350. My current Insta360 X3 is $450. Again, I got that used. It's not as great of a deal as I would have liked. I would have really liked to get it for $400. But yeah, all things considered, this one came with additional batteries and everything, and a nice chat with the owner. So yeah, you know what? $450, so be it. Here's what I really like about 360 cameras. You're not being a camera operator. All you're doing is holding up a stick, right? Just press record and just leave it. What this does is it leaves at least one hand free, right? It leaves you free to drink in the environment. It allows you to actually enjoy being there. You're not just looking at the world through the lens of a camera and not really experiencing it yourself. With a 360 camera, you just press record, just hold up that stick, and you're back in the moment. Obviously, the quality isn't going to be as good, right? It is essentially an action camera. You've got tiny little sensors. But what I realized is that I think some of the most interesting things that happen when I'm overseas, they were all captured by that camera. Yes, of course I have a higher quality camera around my neck, but in those exciting moments, that's not what I'm reaching for. I'm just gonna be there to try and enjoy the moment, right? So that camera in my hand is going to be the one that's doing the hard work. For those of you who aren't quite aware of how 360 cameras work, the idea is that they'll capture a full sphere of video. Basically, wherever you're holding up the camera, that's the center point of the sphere, and anything in the environment, as long as you can draw a direct line of sight from that point to the camera lens, the camera will see and record. Of course, what that means is when you come back home, you're going to be looking at 360 videos that you're going to have to pan around and edit. So yeah, there is an additional level of sort of fiddliness to it, but then again, that's no real difference from shooting in RAW and then having to edit that later. I see it quite literally as the same idea. When you're on the ground, you want to capture as much useful information as possible, and when you come back to editing, you can then sort of shape things up the way you want and tell your story. The more you capture, the more flexibility you have later on in editing. And with a 360 camera, I find that, yeah, as long as anything happens around me, when I come back, I can just pan the camera over and I'll see the action, no matter where it is. The Insta360 Evo back then was a little bit more restrictive because it's just a slab of camera. You don't really have much in terms of controls. It doesn't save your settings, so when you switch it off, everything just goes back to default. So that's a bit of a pain. With the X3, you get a screen on board. You get to actually, dial in your settings without needing to reach for your phone and pair the app and do everything. So it's definitely much better of a choice compared to the Evo. It even shoots log, so you get a little bit more flexibility when it comes to color grading. I don't really take huge advantage of that, but yeah, it is nice to, just have a little bit more dynamic range to play with. In terms of accessories, again, I have a battery box for the Insta360 X3 as well. Again, it is third-party batteries with a third-party charger, so your mileage may vary. The box and battery comes in at $24. And finally, here is one more accessory that has been indispensable for me. Of course, with all these cameras, you'll buy SD cards, you'll buy micro SD cards, but I've always felt a little bit safer to, very quickly and efficiently pull all the data somewhere. And for that, what I've done is I've gotten this little SSD setup here. Now, this is where most of the very creative accounting sort of comes into the picture. I consider that SSD to be free because I salvaged it out of an old laptop that stopped working. So yeah, there you go, that's the trickery. All I had to do was to buy an enclosure, and that cost me about $10. So now, when I travel overseas, I'll bring that SSD overseas as well as a fast cable and a fast card reader. And yeah, suddenly I'm able to sort of transfer my day's worth of photos and videos to somewhere safe. That card reader, by the way, cost me another $11 or so. So yeah, that's about your total bill. Now, I did also learn something quite interesting there that I never really paid attention to. I always assumed USB-C means fast, but that's just the connector. A surprising number of cheap USB-C cables are running on the older USB 2 standard. Look for cables that support USB 3 and data transfer speeds of at least 5 gigabits per second. In fact, it was around that time that I started to replace a lot of my USB-C cables with the truly fast ones, the SSD enclosure, as well as the card reader. I also went out of my way to ensure that they supported USB 3.2. Once I had that, things were blazing fast. When I first tried to bring along a portable disk, not only did I bring along a hard disk, but it was also a much slower disk. So I literally spent hours in the hotel room just offloading the files from my cameras. Yeah, it was a really unpleasant experience. With this faster SSD, it's down to minutes. One last accessory would be this power bank. It delivers 35-watt charging so I can fast charge my phone or any other electronics, and it even has a short built-in USB-C cable, which means I don't have to separately lug another cable around. Time for the final build. We're cutting it real close here, but I'm happy to report that yes, we've managed to keep it under $1,000. That is, if you didn't include the cost of the SSD, which I didn't, and there's another thing to mention as well, which is a con of getting things used. My Sony ZV-1 broke. Yes, it was actually pretty much okay except that little wheel at the back, it just stopped registering. So I had to bring it in for repair. And when I brought it in for repair, what they told me was that this isn't a unit that was purchased in Singapore. And that's true. The person I bought it from, I think they bought it in Thailand. And the way Sony works is, if you bring in a camera from a different region, they charge you double the price. Well, at least for the consultation aspect, which is still quite a lot, right? I think it was supposed to be $60 if it was a local unit. It cost me $120 before paying for the parts as well. I think that was the cost for the labor and consultation, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, it was a bit of a bummer. It was supposed to be a $400 camera that I got used. That was a really good deal. Now it's closer to $600, and I'm not super happy about that, but hey, what are you gonna do, right? At least I got it fixed, it's working now. I've been using it to shoot YouTube videos, and of course every trip I go on, I do bring this camera. This is my main camera. In other words, no regrets really. If it breaks again, I'll just send it in for servicing again. I think this is probably the best camera at this price point that you're gonna get. Oh hey, and here's another story hot off the presses. You might have noticed the sticky residue around the lens in this clip. The previous owner of this camera had the lens guards applied, and while editing this video I decided to remove them because they fog up easily and made the footage quite hazy. And guess what I found? Scratches on the lens itself, which I don't believe were declared by the seller. With the lens guards off, the footage only looks marginally better thanks to said blemishes on the lens. So again, there's another con of buying things used. With that said, I haven't tested the camera extensively without lens guards yet, so hopefully it turns out better than expected. By the time this video goes out, I'll have just come back from my 4th trip to Japan, so check to see if I've put up a pinned comment with updates to this. So we've reached the end of the video. What exactly is my message? I have no idea, honestly. I'm just here to talk about my cameras and how much I love them. But yeah, I think what I guess I can show you is, well, it is possible to get a good deal, right? Just keep your eyes open, don't get scammed, understand what you're getting into. And probably the second thing would be travel light. I would have enjoyed my trips nearly as much if I had to lug like a DSLR around, so I'm glad I didn't. Anyway, that's it. I don't want to waste any more of your time, so thank you very much for watching. Until next time, you're watching 0612 TV with NERDfirst.net. Hey, have I been helpful? Want to see this channel grow? A PayPal donation or a super thanks would be incredible. Of course, you can always share the video, comment on it, like it, and subscribe. You know the deal. Thank you once again, and I'll see you next time.